During Restoring Love, we had book signings. David Barton was one of them. Michelle Bachman was one of them. We had...
Pat and Stu was one of them.
Whatever.
Hello.
We had...
Huge.
Brad Thor.
737,000 people lined up.
Mm-hmm. Brad Thor was there. I mean, we had some really big authors. Mm-hmm. And then there was Richard Paul Evans. Richard Paul Evans...
Was that an insult?
No.
And then this guy.
Richard Paul Evans, let me explain. Richard Paul Evans is one of the reasons why the Department of Homeland Security came to us and said they were worried about crowd control. His line for his book signing for Michael Vey, The Rise of the Elgen, which is the Michael Vey, the second in the series, the reason why they said that they were concerned about crowds, his line was 1/4 of a mile long. And you just told me, I didn't know this story. You stood in your own line.
Yeah, I thought that was a line to get into the event. So I was there 2 hours early. I waited in line and thought, this line's not going anywhere. So
What a buffoon.
So, thank you.
Brad Thor wouldn't have done that.
Nope.
I'm a humble guy, okay? So I walked around.
You stood in your own line.
Yeah,
and
so
That's funny.
And so then I walked around and went to the front, like, I have to get in there. And when I got to the front, people were wearing these T-shirts they had made that said Vaniacs. And they start pointing at me, and this guy said, "This is your line for your book signing." I said, No.
You know, what's so funny is you're standing in your own line. Nobody knew. They're all waiting to meet you. They're all waiting to get your autograph, and the people around you had no idea who you were.
Well, it's all context.
It's so amazing. The Michael Vey series, I'm just, my kids were a little too young to read it last year. Rafie's just about 8 now, and I'm reading it to my son and my daughter, who is 7. And we love it, just love it. I've been waiting to be able to share the books with them. And I told Rafe last night, we're just about finished with the first one, and I told Rafe last night, I said, we have to finish this because the new one comes out tomorrow. And I told the story earlier. He looked at me like he is not buying into me. And he's like, what are you selling? And I looked at him and I said, what's the problem? He said, Dad, it comes out tomorrow. And I said, yeah. And he said, then how come we've had a copy for about a month? He thought he was discovering Dad's a liar. So we start. I haven't read it yet because I want to read it with the kids. Tell me about Rise of the Elgen.
Rise of the Elgen, of course, takes off where the first book ended. Michael's mother was kidnapped, and in Rise of the Elgen, Michael is going down to save his mother, and it takes them to South America and into the jungles of the Amazon, which I've actually spent a lot of time in the jungles. We have done a lot of humanitarian work down there, so it's a ride. That's all I can say. It's fun. It's a little bit scarier than the first book, but I think that's good for especially the young male readers.
You are. You and I have one thing in common when it comes to books, and it sets us apart, I think, from the rest of the publishing world. When you first had this book, you went to publishers, and they said...
They weren't interested. I mean, remember how much fun we had last year, Glenn?
Oh, yeah.
Because no one believed in the book.
I know.
The book debuts at #1 on the New York Times. I don't know if you know this, by the second day, it was in its 6th printing. By the second day out.
Holy cow.
Yeah, they basically, Simon Schuster stopped all the other books and just printed Michael Vey to keep up with the demand.
The book comes out, and all of the publishers kept saying, you have to dumb it down, dumb it down. And when I read it, I said, Richard, smarten it up a little bit. It's got to be a little smarter and a little darker for kids. This is our first... as Mercury Inc., this is my first moving into try to get the young adults in a way that they understand. Everybody else is like, I've got to do a moralistic book now. And golly, gee, Wally, Mom's going to be so upset when they find out. Leave It to Beaver doesn't connect. It just doesn't connect if the kids are in the filth that's out there. So this is kind of going into their world and dragging them back.
Right. If you want to teach about self-sacrifice, you could put an essay on there, or you could do what Zeus does, when all of a sudden they're in a hall filled with rats, and he.
Well, don't tell me. I don't want to. Yeah, don't give it.
But you know, these kids make sacrifices for their love because of their love and their friendship.
And it's easy to be able to read it with your kids and have conversations that are real, that are not moralistic, that are just real conversations. What are you seeing? Did we give this out to advanced readers? I know we did some, but have you gotten any reviews back or anything from advanced readers?
Getting it back on my Facebook page. And what they're saying is most are saying it's better than the first book. Getting a lot of, it's a little bit scarier than the first book, a lot of fun. And what I'm really hearing is the end of the book, the last third, once you start there, you'll be up all night reading it because once it starts rolling, you can't stop.
How many people are saying it needs more vampires? A lot? Are you getting a lot of that?
You know what? People are
Shakespearean vampires.
People are so glad there's no vampires
I bet.
and no wizards.
Have you seen the bookshelves, especially for young adults? There, you can't find anything that's not vampire related.
You know why?
It's ridiculous.
Because nobody is independent. They're all sheep.
Yep.
They're all sheep.
Yep.
And so somebody comes up with a good idea and a good book. Thing. Yeah, Stephanie Meyer does the Twilight thing, and then everybody's like, "Oh, the kids love vampires." No, It was a really good story. Can you stop and come up with something original, which is what you did with Michael Vey? Let me. I can't help, and I hope I don't make you uncomfortable, but I can't help because I'm reading it now, and Michael keeps talking about his tics. Michael has Tourette syndrome.
Right.
You have Tourette syndrome.
I have Tourette syndrome. And
he keeps saying when when he gets into a nervous situation or he's about to, be around a girl or whatever, he starts, twitching and his eye starts blinking.
Like I am right now.
Yeah, you're not now, but when Pat was talking to you, your eye was twitching. Yeah. You have a crush on him or?
No, it's anxiety.
Mm-hmm. It's anxiety.
And that's what Michael, Taylor can always in the book can tell when Michael's nervous because he starts twitching. How was that when you were growing up? How much of Michael is you? Most of it. And I didn't realize it till after the book was out a year that a friend came and said, this is you, right? You do know you wrote a book about yourself. And
except you're not electric.
I'm not electric. But the electricity is really a metaphor of the power we have within ourselves, whether it's our love or our talents. It's just one other different thing we can use. And I didn't have electricity. I had a different way of communicating with other people.
There is a great, there's several scenes in it that are, I think towards the very beginning, and I think what people, kids and adults see in it is themselves. You say Michael Vey is you. I don't have Tourette's, but I had kind of the childhood that Michael Vey had too, where you were just kind of the loser kid and you got beat up and, whatever. And I think a lot of us had that kind of experience. Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy. People didn't want to hear about George Washington. That you see yourself and your own childhood, and we all kind of see ourselves as the outsider being picked on somebody. But there's a really important scene in the first book about when Michael teams up with the guys who have been beating up on him. And I just read this part with Rafe 2 days ago. And it was such a great conversation to have with Rafe where you realize what these kids who are bullies, what's happening to them in their life. And I could see lights go on in his head. Have you heard that very often? Have you heard that from anybody else? That kids are they're not only seeing themselves, but they're opening up and seeing other things that they never even considered before.
Expressed not quite so articulately.
Well, you're being kind.
But what kids say is, "Wow, that's kind of tough being the bully," and but also I can see why he does that. And Michael makes that statement. He goes, "I probably would be shoving kids in lockers too if that happened to me at home." And so, in fact, Jack becomes one of the favorite characters. In fact, my daughter said, she's my writing assistant, she goes, "I think Jack's my favorite character now."
Is he in 2?
He's in 2. He's a big part of 2. And you get to see, one of the things that Michael is, why they love him so much, is that Michael brings the best out of everyone. So Jack, he knows Jack wants to be a hero. He wants to be like his brother who's a Marine. And Jack gets to play that part. and he becomes the best he can be, and all of them do. There's a scene in the jungle between Ostin and McKenna, two of the characters, that I think is stunning in the second book. It's one of my favorite things I've read of all my novels. I just read it over and over. I thought, I love that scene because she inspires him to be who he really can be.
The name of the book is Michael Vey 2, Rise of the Elgen, and it is available everywhere. There's a reason why the line to get the autograph on this book was 1/4 of a mile long. Just think of that. 1/4 of a mile long for a book that most of America has not heard of really yet. I don't think this book will take off really until book 3. And that's when this book will really start to have momentum, because that's the kind of the pattern of these Twilight and Harry Potter and Percy Jackson and everything else. It starts to build momentum around book 3. In book 1, it was already a bigger seller than book 1 of Harry Potter when it was first released.
It's actually Simon Schuster's largest new series, young adult release in their history. So
you got that going for you. Now, there's a reason why it's 1/4 of a mile long to say hello. Get your kids on the bandwagon and share it with a friend. It is a great way to teach your kids, a great way to just to have a great read. And it's not just for kids, really not. It's a great book. Pat read it, right? You loved it.
Oh, yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
I read it by myself. I loved it. And this is one of the reasons why I said smarten it up a little bit, because you can really make me love it. And Pat, after he read the edits, Pat loved it as well. I mean, you can read it as an adult as well.
We ran into a little bit of a problem with the adults were liking it so much, then giving it to the kids, there's kind of lag here. It's like, if adults like it, then maybe we shouldn't be reading this.
Yeah, don't let your kids know you like it.
But then they caught on, and their friends start telling them to read it. So.
And that's where one of the reasons why also the first book was Prisoner of Cell 25 and had kind of a dark cover, because I wanted it to not be like your parents liked it.
Yeah, well, this one is scary. It has rats on the cover, the second one.
It's really good. Who's the artist that did the cover? Do you remember?
I forgot his name. He does video games.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay,
now,
then go ahead.
You heard about the deal we have?
No.
On the book today?
No.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I only run the dump.
It's just for your listeners.
Okay.
Premier set it up. If you go to, of course, it's available right now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. But if you go to Premier, just actually go to michaelvey2.com.
Michael, Vey 2, the number 2.com.
50% off. Just like $9 for the hardcover book.
These
Fantastic.
are first edition copies,
Yes. And
may I make a recommendation? Keep your first edition copy. Buy 2, put one on the shelf. Have you seen what a Harry Potter goes for? Buy 2, put one on a shelf. Mark my words, I collect books. Michael Vey, first edition copies. You can get them at michaelvey2.com. Only for this audience, 50% off today only if you go to michaelvey2.com. But tell all your, what did Michelle Obama call them? Knucklehead friends? Tell all your knucklehead friends that they can get it at amazon.com. Okay. Richard, we'll talk to you later. Thank you so much.
Great, thank you.